You know, we've seen Evil Twins come in Top Cut for a Nationals, but I didn't think we would see it on the regional side of things here for North America. Something that 30% of you guys have not smashed the other crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so we can climb up the 100K ladder here. We have the South Dakota regional breakdown for you guys here for June. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is a pretty interesting little breakdown here. Outside of, your two heavy contenders that you've seen countless times over at this point. Sword Soul and Despia being those two front runners. I mean, you will see some events where they will break that norm and you will not see these two decks, in Top Cut sometimes at all. But for the regional grind, these are the more consistent decks that players choose to bring because they obviously net the most consistent results at the end of the day. Now, winning the event was none other than Elise Davis. Now, Elise is one of the most consistent contenders in really the U.S. I see their name pop up all the time. And they actually ended up winning this regional with none other than Adventure Dragon Link. So this is actually a pretty big win here for Dragon Link in general. Like, this deck has kind of been struggling for quite some time to actually get its roots off of the ground. And the fact that we kind of get a nice little pushback here to show us that this deck can still function, absolutely amazing. We also had one Virtual World deck in Top Cut. Now, I don't know how many of you guys just kind of forgot about Virtual World being one of those decks that was sitting at the dinner table, but it is still here. It is still doing its job. And you know what? I think it's still kind of keeping players on edge because I think we've reached the point where people forgot how to play against this deck. We also have one Evil Twin deck that managed to make its way into Top Cut here. Honestly, seeing that Evil Twins actually got 4th place in terms of results, very, very interesting, actually. I'll clap to that. And then we also had one Eldritch list in this Top Cut. Eldritch has been needing like the branded engine for a little while, but this is the control aspect of things without that branded package. So that is your little top 8 breakdown. We're going to pass on over for those deck lists now. All right, first place winning this event was Elise Davis, as we said, playing Dragon Link with a mini Rose Dragon package in it, and also with the full adventure package. Now, the adventure package gives you that nice little sauce that you want, the little chance to kind of capitalize, set up some Omni Negates, so if Nibiru shows up, you're not worried about it. Now, the thing I liked about this list was we're actually main decking Space Rock. As the format kind of evolves and you see Based show up in some sort of iterations here, Space Rock gains a whole lot more value. So I actually think it's kind of nice seeing, how that is shaping up for us here. Gammas in the side, Drolls as well. More of those anti-meta cards that you need to see in order to stop those big bully decks at the end of the day. Outside of that, everything for this list is pretty much as you would expect, ladies and gentlemen. I don't see anything really too crazy else. I mean, Dragon Link is pretty standard at this point in time. All right, next up here, second place is our Virtual World list. Yes, Virtual World actually made it all the way in this second place here, and I'm actually fairly impressed with that. Like I said, now that Virtual World's kind of become one of those roguish competitor decks, a lot of people have kind of just stepped back and went, oh, what are we doing here? I actually think the most interesting thing about this is we're playing the Money Mud Dragon, but we're not like doing fusion subplays with this, which maybe that was just an error on them, or they just didn't want to include it. Or they were like, last minute cut will be fine. I just find that very interesting in terms of the extra deck there. Outside of that, standard Virtual World ratios for the traps, the 1-2, 2 copies of Desires. No Brave package to kind of, set up and do the negation things. You're still able to do everything that you want to do with this. So, yeah, like I said, no Adventure package basically means that the deck's a whole lot cheaper and a lot more budget friendly. Outside of that, yeah, side deck is very standard. Like I said, Virtual World's pretty straightforward here. Third place here is our Sword Soul variant. We're on 2 Vessel, 2 Dragon Cycle. Most standardized thing that we've seen, all format here. Shout out to Synthana and company here. So yes, we are playing one Synthana. We are playing the one Monster Reborn. I've kind of noticed as of late that the Sword Soul decks are starting to head down that path of wanting to see that Monster Reborn. Honestly, that little extender can make or break certain situations in your matchups. And honestly, sometimes it comes up. Also, our hand traps of like actually seeing the effect failure in this versus DD Crow. DD Crow has been a very big thing for a little while, but the fact that this list was able to adjust and compensate without playing DD Crow actually is pretty nice. I will say that. When you can get diversity and options like that, you know, not being forced to be like, oh, okay, like I need to play DD Crow for this, you know, this event kind of proved to us that you don't need to go down the more stapleistic route. So not bad in terms of that. Next up here is our Evil Twin list. I almost said Evil Swarm for some reason. So standard 3-3 for the starters, 1-1 for the extenders, and we're playing the one big one. Most of your value for the big one's going to come into, you know, just the Link 4 ends up milling it off. You know, I honestly think a lot of players probably just got stopped by this deck just on the pure amount of hand traps you're seeing here. Veilers, Crows, Ashes, Bells, and Imperms. What is that? 15 hand traps in that bad boy? That's a lot. And if, you know, considering the fact that the deck is 1 card starters, you know, if you open up some combination of, man, 3 hand traps and a starter, and your opponent doesn't have a way to stop you, you're basically off to the races. So capitalization on that is good. I mean, like I said, you also have droplets to follow it up as well. Like, this deck does not care. It just wants to get off the ground and then start its game plan, which, you know what? Shout out to Elijah for pulling it off. Not too bad. Next up here is our little Despia list. So we are on double crossout designator in the deck. Honestly, for 44 cards, I can see you getting away with that. We're only playing 1 Albion in here. We did see Albion kind of start going towards a 2 of in a couple builds, and then Fallen of Albaz was also going up to multiples. This build is also not playing the Allure of Darkness. We've seen Allure also be that more standardized thing as of late. You know, I think it was, what, 3 Allure, 1 McCareer. So this build kind of took a step back from that. And yes, this build is main decking Cosmic Cyclones because they don't want to lose to a random left field Mystic Mine. I don't blame you for that. Actually, just building in some sort of backer removal. If you do run into like Rogue on the ladder as you're climbing up, those Cosmic Cyclones will make your life a whole lot easier. So, honestly, advantage is very, very good, and I will take that, ladies and gentlemen. So, congratulations to breaking the mold here for what's normal at this point. Next up is our next list here. Now, this is what I was talking about in terms of your standard. All right, you see that we have the triple copies of the Allure of Darkness and then double McCourier in here. All right, now, the thing that both of these lists had in common here was we do have the crossout designators here. So, the one big scary thing that ends up happening to Despia players that really disrupts them is the fact that a key hand trap or two will ruin your entire day. And I do wholeheartedly agree with that statement. Honestly, crossout might be more of a thing. You also notice like both of these decks, 44, 45 cards for this event were the more successful ones. The more options that you can pack into a deck like this seems to be your better results, honestly, at the end of the day. So, Despia interactions, pretty straightforward. I mean, also shout out to Fairy Tale Snow here, being an amazing ass card for this deck. So, yeah, those are your Despia lists for this event. I'm not really shocked at all. Alright, next up here is our Eldritch list. So, we are on 40 cards. Alright, we're playing 3 Lord and 2 Eldritch of the Golden Lords. Honestly, double Lord or triple Lord of the Heavenly Sky Prison is going to be fine. Now, if you've noticed, a lot more Eldritch variants I've been going towards playing that anti-spell fragrance. Honestly, anti-scam fragrance is pretty good. Alright, now the cool thing about this list here is we are on Duality, Extract, and Prosperity. There might be some slight conflictions there depending on how you open up. I mean, I could definitely see a world where you open Extract, Prosperity, and Duality and you're just like, well, I guess I'm setting the Extract for the next turn. But this build definitely looks like it was definitely set up to just hard counter the meta, as this deck should be. I mean, obviously, your Sword Soul anti-hate for spell cards, same thing with Despia stuff, and I mean, you've got Dimensional Barrier for any other matchup you need. Plus, you have Super Polys in the side deck. Like, you have your matchups covered relatively easily for this. And then last but not least, here was our last Sword Soul list here, showing us that, you know what, we can mix things up a little bit, you know? 2 Vessel, 2 Heavenly is fine. We don't need the Monster Reborn for this list. We have Forbidden Chalices in the main deck, which is actually fine. And you do see the anti-magic arrows down there showing up. We've seen a lot of anti-magic arrows as of late, kind of shaping up to be that little metagame choice that players are like, all right, you know, I can round out some of my crappier matchups with the support of this. So, overall, Everything for this regional looks pretty straightforward. The Altoona regional has come and gone here, and there were 187 participants for this regional, which tells me some very interesting things. Your top cut for this event is pretty frickin' diverse, actually. Winning the event was Adventure Punk Eldritch, which we've kind of seen the little synchro hybrid deck of that. It's basically based in terms of the way it works. Basically acting as, Eldritch package, gives you synchro access. I mean, heck, man, if this deck's playing Jet Sangrein, you get free combo ability up into, you guessed it, Psychic Imp Punisher, which is very, very scary. We also had one Salamangreat for the top cut of this event, which, honestly, Salad is gaining a lot of momentum as of late. I know, at least in terms of like being a rogue buster deck, if you're not really prepared for this, we live in an era right now where players have not figured out how to handle the Salad matchup, which means they just lose. We also had a Lyrilisk Tri-Brigade deck in Top Cut, which I think is very interesting as well. Lyrilisk Tri-Brigade has been pretty quiet as of late, and seeing that deck came back out of the woodwork here to perform for this event, very interesting. We also have Flaunderies, Based, Branded Despia, and Dragon Link. And if you're looking at this overall as like a good representation of the format, I would say that Rogue was a lot heavier here, which is, I think, very interesting at the end of the day. And then, of course, there's that one Weather Painter player. Yes, somehow Weather Painter found a way to kind of overcome a lot of the weaknesses. Oh, it's just skill drain shenanigans. More than likely, yes. Seeing Weather Painter creep into top 8 as a rogue deck is absolutely phenomenal. And I mean, like I said, look at the rest of this top cut in terms of its representation and tell me that that's not awesome. Let's pass on over for some deck lists now. All right, the first list we're going to be looking at here is, of course, Scythe and Friends. So you're going to be using your Punk Engine to climb up the Synchro Ladder. There's the best card in this deck. I honestly think that the whole reason why this deck can perform is because of this card. Wow, we really shrunk down our Eldritch package. Man, we do not want any bricks in here whatsoever. I'm also glad to see that Nibiru looks like it has gained a lot more presence in the current metagame. I know when Despia was running a lot higher, you would see less Nibiru because, in your Despia matchup, them summoning 5 times is pretty much unheard of at this point in time. So seeing that this has become like a cornerstone of things right now is good. Also, shout out to Ghost Mourner here, actually being a pretty good hand trap. Not only does it act as a secondary veiler, you can also get some burn damage in to make sure that your opponent doesn't get to have fun because of the time rules. Yay, competitive play 101, baby. You love to see it. Next up here is our Salamangreat deck. Now, every Salad deck, this whole format is just cut Pot of Desires. I've said that in a lot of videos right now, but I think that's probably the most interesting thing is they just don't care about the draw power. I also see that we are doing Corruptor Ibly shenanigans. Honestly, people don't have it out for this. You hand this to a Despia player, they're just like, what do I do with this? Like, hello? Like, a big old scary Ibly. Well, it's a free auto lockout. Obviously, we have the board breakers in here, Dark Roll No More, and because we're not playing Desires, we don't have to play all the extra bad cards. So we are playing 1 Rage and 1 Roar. I also see we are playing 1 Microcoder here, actually. This does actually give you free access to climb up, and then easier, Transcode Talker with Access Code Talker shenanigans, so you can kind of win the game a lot easier. This deck having a win con built into it, I think is actually hilarious. You'd be surprised how much an Access Code can go burr. Next up is our Tri-Brigade Lyrilisk deck. Now, ever since we saw Recital Starling go to 1, this deck has been a lot more quiet, but it's been gaining a little bit more steam. I've seen a couple of these show up. Hasn't been great. I mean, the fact you can search for D Crow feels really, really good in the grand scheme of things. And, since this is in a remote event, you can actually play Jack in the Hand. Jack in the Hand is something that didn't see a lot of crazy play in the very early stages of this deck. Well, actually, it was in the very early stages, actually. But the fact that they just kind of cut it and now they've come back to it is very nice. See, we also are playing Oath in here, the select negate for, you know, burning off like an evenly matched or something. It's actually very, very interesting. Outside of that, I would say that this deck feels very standardized in terms of the rest of the metagame, but nothing really shocks me anymore when it comes to like these innovations. This card right here, pretty much a free auto win con in certain matchups. Next up here is our Flounder list. Now, across all of the Flounder list that you've been watching for all of time here, you probably noticed the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. There is some sort of combination of Mystic Mine that starts to show up in these decks. I think, was it out of the Italian Nationals, you saw how many Mystic Mines across all of the bird decks. All right, this build's still playing one of them. I see we're also playing the Dark Ruler No Mores. I know a lot of builds just don't like to play this, but honestly, when you get into a situation where like you need board breakers to punish the opponent, yeah, like this is good. Like, unfortunately, Flunder does have a problem playing through a large negate board, and that's where like cards like these kind of come in so you can equalize the playing field and play the game. And once again, yeah, Harpy's Featherstorm here. We've seen a lot more Featherstorm in the main, so seeing this in the side is actually kind of interesting. All right, next up here is this was our base deck. So we're playing 46 cards, double talents. I don't know if you guys have like paid attention to like some of these decks in this format, but there have been a lot of 2 of talents as of late. Nobody's playing 3 of this. I think there's one Sky Striker deck that was trying to play 1 of this, but if you're seeing this card right now, I think the majority of the competitive player base is agreeing that 2 is the way to go for this. So that's definitely a little interesting note for that. Double Illusion, double Magician Souls is fine. Once again, you see the Space Rocks here, and then you've got the Homage to Time here. Anytime you're playing in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And you know, ooh no, the timer's running down, just side in your Gaga Cowboy Dragon here. Pop for 500 damage. Seems free to me. And of course we have Sword Soul and Despia Hate here, so this should round up our matchups. I also love the fact this deck gets access to the Necrorobe Banshee. The exact same stuff Despia was doing, this deck can do it. Next up here we have Despia. 50 cards rammed into this bad boy here, and we are playing the Predaplant stuff here. Ooh, piece of candy, so we can instant fusion out for this. Oh, we're not even playing instant fusion. Okay, so we're just gonna hard make this the way it looks. Interesting. Of course, playing Patchworks as you should. No McCourier, actually. We are playing 3 Allure, but no McCourier. I guess none of like the extra stuff, but we are playing the Albion. And of course, there you go. You see Space Rock. Like I said, you're seeing Nibiru gently come back on into the format here and do its job. And it surprises me. The players are just like, I don't want to main Nibiru, Robbie. It's not good right now. Well, every other regional would disagree with you in terms of that thought. Outside of that, this deck, the No McCourier, I understand, but like, I don't know, some of the other choices here feel really weird. A lot of board breakers, for sure. Next up here is our Dragon Link Adventure deck. I don't know if you guys have paid attention, but like Dragon Link Adventure has gained a lot of popularity right now. Like Dragon Link has had to evolve to the point that it needs to play this engine to set up the Omni Negate. Like it will struggle bus so hard if it can't get off the ground. And I think that's like the biggest weakness of Dragon Link is if you don't see this package, you're just going to kind of get combo broke. Yeah, you still set up like Borreload Savage, you know, the Hot Red, and then, you know, like Baron, depending on the hand, but you do have some issues at the end of the day. Borreload can only carry so hard here, and the more the Despia is kind of falling out of the format here, the threat of a set contact fusion across your field just gets reduced as each and every event comes and goes. I do like the Chaos Emperor in here, though. We've seen this hasn't been popular for a little while, so to see this come back is really, really nice. Kudos for this. This is one of the cooler cards that you can play in this deck. And the last one we have here is Weather Painter. Yes, I know. We are playing Mystic Mine and Skill Drain in our anti-fun deck. All right. Honestly, it's going to be a whole lot of column adjacent stuff here. The weather forecast and make sure life so much easier so you can get through these. Very, very nice. I also see we are playing a Condemned Dark Lord in here. Actually getting access to this is hilarious because your quota for like fairies is easy, man. And then of course you're playing Zen Mains in here to climb up into the Zeus. protection. It's been a little while since I've seen that one. Outside of that, I like this deck a lot. This is the control power that you want to see out here. So what do you got? Your 619 Indianapolis regional breakdown is here, and I think the most interesting thing out of this whole thing here is Dragon Link has started to incorporate the Brave package and kind of adapt in some of the more interesting stuff from it. We did see for a little while that there were some Dragon Link decks that were actually playing the Punk engine in it as well. Dragon Link has gone through so many evolutions this format. There have been a few cases where we've seen pure Dragon Link perform up to standard. I mean, Chaos Armageddon Dragon has definitely helped a lot more in that regard. But when you look at like the rest of this deck and you look at this regional, you see that base Dragon Link was the highest represented number versus, some of the other builds that you've seen out there. I think that really tells a pretty interesting story for this deck. And, I give Dragon Link a lot of crap on this channel for the majority of its life here, for this format. Like, Alba Lenitus really checked it in the very early stages. Leave it to the Dragon Link players. I think that's the most interesting thing that they really have going for them, is once they figure out the game plan, how they want to handle things, it is a really good thing. I see that we also had 10E Sword Soul in here. The rest of this is pretty standard stuff here. We had one Flounder as well, one Cyber Angel Drytron. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like after the UK Nationals, where you saw Drytron just come out of the woodwork and crush the competition, a lot of players have reevaluated their stance on that deck, and I think it's a very good thing. All right, Drytron seeing play again is absolutely amazing, and now that the ceiling is way higher for the deck, also players don't know how to handle a Vanity's Ruler. We also had Branded Despia, double Flounder, and then we also had one base deck. Technically, those are 3 base engines and 1 top cut. We're going to pass on over for deck list now. All right, the first place deck that we have for this regional actually is your based version of this deck. So actually, the cool thing about this deck is it gets to play the mini Magicians, literally a 1-1 split here for this deck. So you can go get into this. So you can capitalize on spinning, your Draco back and your Faithful Adventurer to get 2 free resources. One of the things that this deck loves the most about its game plan right now is I need cards to function. Once we can get to those resources and play through and set up, you're good to go. And honestly, this deck still has the freest game plan pretty much of any deck right now. You deploy the free Omni Negate, you don't give 2 craps about the effect of your normal summon monster, and you just start doing, climb up shenanigans. The other interesting thing is this build has access to Borrelem, which is another boss monster that a lot of players kind of just have an issue with overall. So seeing an establishment of this guy hit the field is very, very, very powerful. Next up here is our Sword Soul list. Now, as we've seen in a lot of other videos here, we are seeing that the Heavenly Dragon cycle is definitely encompassing seeing any real play versus Vassal. Vassal has just been... Nobody wants to play the 2-2 split anymore. It's all about this. I've also noticed that a lot of the Sword Soul list, a lot of players have been trying to get off with just 6 hand traps. 3 Ash and 3 Imperm. We've seen in a lot of builds, but this build, other builds I think I've seen 9. And then this build is going for the 12. So the triple Ash, the triple Veiler, the triple Nibiru with the triple Imperm, which should pretty much facilitate your game plan. Like, you shouldn't have any issues once all of this basically goes, all right? Like, your game plan is, oh no, I get interrupted. Well, my hand traps are supposed to support me. Unlike your standard Sword Soul deck that might only be playing 6 to 9, the 12, I think, feels a lot better in terms of construction. So keep that in mind, all right? Next up here is our next base Dragon Link. Now, the difference between this list and the other one here, you do see that we are on a double Magician Souls package versus a double Illusion here, which tells me that they wanted more draw power for the deck. Honestly, I think you can go either route, a 1-1 split versus a 2-1. The difference with playing, 4 versus 2 is you'll draw it. And I think that's a very important thing in terms of deck building, is making sure you can see those resources. All right, but still, little things to consider for 500. Chaos Space is such a busted card. I also see Gamma is here. If you've noticed, Gamma has fallen off very, very much this format. We've seen Gamma show up in a couple of side decks and very, very few main decks this format. It's still there, but it's not like on the scale that it was previously. All right, so that's one big thing to understand right now if you're going to play competitively. A reduction in gamma means that you're not going to get hand trapped quite as hard. All right, next up here is our Flunder list. Holy moly. We are playing the absolute board breakers. We are on triple Dark Rule No More with the triple Mystic Mine. Wow. We did not want the opponent to play the game. It's actually kind of interesting that this is what Flunder has evolved into, this format. The fact that you just have access to 4 copies of no monster effects. This is turn skip. You do everything your opponent did, you break it, and you have Mystic Mine, everything your opponent did, you make it worthless. With 9 board breakers currently present in a game like this, it's no wonder why Flunder has become one of the most frustrating matchups for players to have to deal with, because if you set up your entire board and the Flunder player just goes second, and just Dark Rulers you, and just normal summons Rabina, you're just like, oh, you just want to start screeching at the top of your lungs. So, seeing the evolution of this deck has been a ride as well. Next up here is our Drytron list. So we are playing Magic Key Unlocking. I don't know if you guys have really noticed as of late, but Magic Key Unlocking has been busted for this deck. Literally, when your opponent activates a spell or trap card effect while you control a Magic Key Ritual monster or a Magic Key monster special summon from the extra deck, negate that activation, do destroy that card. Is that free? Oh, you can Ritual Summon this card using any Magic Key card. We don't care about that. If this card is Ritual Summon, you add a Magic Key card from your deck to your hand. I can search for my Omni, or my Spell and Trap Negate. Delicious. I also see we're playing Ritual Sanctuary here. Add a light Ritual monster or 1 Ritual spell card from your hand by discarding a spell card. Oh, that is actually pretty good. Light Ritual monster, so we can go search for E to 10, Natasha, technically search for Draconis here, and we can search for the Ben 10. That's some free real estate here. It's definitely interesting to see the Ritual Sanctuaries gain some momentum here. Next up here is our little Frightfur deck. 50 cards in this bad boy, by the way. I see that we are playing the Predaplant package in here as well, which definitely, I've noticed the last few lists that have shown up for this deck have just been playing more of the Predaplant package here. I also see that we are playing the Stay Sailor here, giving us access to things. Technically, you could play the Rose Garden card in the extra deck if you really want to get cheesy about things, but I don't think it's worth it. Your hand trap ratio here is kind of interesting too. Like, 2 Ash, the 1 DD Crow, the 1 Effect Veiler, all because of the Croissant Designators here. We are also playing the Dark Rule No Mores for the board breaking, yeah! Outside of that, if you guys haven't noticed, Despy is just... it doesn't look as good on paper anymore. They've had to make a lot of bad choices in order to keep up with the modern format, and I think that's kind of interesting at the end of the day. Alright, next up here. Oh boy, our next Flunder list. Man, we just don't... this build just didn't want to Mystic Mine our opponent. Was the mentality of this list just, nah, bro, we're not gonna Mystic Mine. I don't want to play that trash. I'm gonna triple Raigeki your butthole, though. Like, that feels real bad. If you get triple Raigeki'd in a game, it's going to feel real bad. I also see we're playing like more of a control-ish package here because we do have the Solemn Judgments in here, and the anti-spells, and the Evenleys, and of course the Harpies Featherstorms. The thing is, Featherstorm is equally as powerful as a Mystic Mine resolving, I feel like, these days. Outside of that, in terms of the deck build here, 1 Stormwind, double Empen. A lot of players have refused to kind of extend out on the Empen game here. I do like 2 of this card in this deck. I really do. I would definitely give consideration to maintaining 2 of these for the long run here. So that is your Flunder list here for Top Cut. And then we also have our base deck. This build is playing Mare, so we can combo extend out through the ladders. That's interesting. I also see, of course, standard Punk package, standard Enchantress friends. Nothing else really too crazy in the long run for this deck, but Mare really does make this particular part of this deck go a lot crazier at the end of the day. So if you're a fan of seeing what Based can do for this format, it's still pretty crazy. So that is your breakdown for this regional. Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. Of course, if you guys have did any of the cool topping at events recently, if you have any breakdowns, feel free to send them on over. I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.